Hello everyone and welcome to the final game from day 2. This is from round 10. It's Magnus Carlsen versus Hikaru Nakamura, always a most welcoming matchup. And before we check out the game, I would just like to thank everyone for getting this channel to 1 million subscribers. It is now official. There you have it, a nice round number. And while I will be addressing this maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, maybe on a rest day when I get some time, because there's a lot to cover in this tournament, I would just like to once again say thank you all, and let's check out this game. But we will get to that, and you know, everyone's been asking me, okay, but now you have to reveal what agadmator means and so on, and we'll get to that. But first things first, let's check out this very nice game. So Magnus with the white pieces opens with d4. We have knight to f6 by Hikaru, c4, e6, we have knight to f3 and d5. The queen's gambit declined is on the board. We have knight to c3 and bishop to e7 and bishop to f4. This is Carlsen's go-to move. We have castles and now a3. We have c5 by Hikaru and captures. And this has all been played before, and it's, well, nothing out of the ordinary here. The usual moves are e3, and also c captures on d5 has been played. But Magnus plays b4, and it is, as of move 8, that we have a completely new game. And the good things always happen when someone plays b4. As you know, b4 is definitely my favorite move in the entire chess. So Hikaru has to deal with this, and as he's probably never seen it before, he took some time here to consider what's happening, and then he decided to move the bishop to e7. You could also offer a trade here with bishop to d6, but he decides to keep the material on the board. So bishop e7, and only now e3 by Magnus. So keeping his king in the center of the board a bit longer, but if it works, why not? So Hikaru somehow tries to take advantage of this and goes for a5, attacking that b4 pawn that Magnus so happily pushed. So a5, and here c captures on d5. We have knight captures on d5, knight captures, and e captures on d5, and now Magnus advances his pawn to b5, with his king still in the center of the board. So Hikaru needs to figure out how to take advantage of this. He goes knight to d7. Now he wants to play knight to c5 and play a4 and bring his knight over to b3. And if he can do that, he's going to be a very happy chess player. So here, bishop to e2. Magnus is now ready to castle, and knight to c5 now. We have castles by Magnus, and now a4, preparing knight to b3, and now bishop to e5. Magnus doesn't want this bishop to gain control of this diagonal, so he gets bishop to e5 in, and knight to b3. We have the rook is under attack, so rook to a2, and now bishop to e6. Just continuing development, now the rooks can come into the game. Knight to d4 by Magnus, putting pressure on the bishop, also hoping to trade here, as the knight is now attacked twice, but Hikaru goes for the very tricky bishop to d6, and this definitely comes with a trick, because now if you try to win a pawn, you simply trade here and then try and win a pawn, knight captures. Hikaru will not capture the knight, but rather Hikaru had the d4 planned, and now you have problems here. Best thing to do is just give up the rook and grab a pawn while you're at it. Knight captures, bishop captures on a2. So this is what Hikaru was planning. But after bishop to d6, Magnus says, alright, so I can't really do that. I'm gonna go knight captures on e6, f captures, and only now bishop back to b2. So kind of keeping the tension, but it's still a problem. How do you get this rook into the game, as this knight is really excellently placed here? So Hikaru continues development, rook to c8, and now g3, creating some breathing room for the king, and also this bishop and the queen here could be a nuisance later on, so best just stop that with g3. We have queen to d7 by Hikaru and bishop to d3 now. Now Magnus also wants to put pressure on Hikaru's king side, as the f pawn is gone, so the king side is a bit weakened. Queen to f7. Now the rook has to stay here to keep an eye on the f2 pawn, and now e4. And this is a very tricky move, because Hikaru could play d4 and close off this bishop's diagonal for good, and then it's a question, what is this bishop doing for the rest of the game, and how is the rook getting into the game for the rest of the game? But Hikaru does not play d4, he plays bishop to c5, adds a third attacker to the pawn here, and now Magnus just goes e captures on d5. So what's the idea here? Why is Magnus allowing this bishop captures on f2? Well, he's saying that if captures king g2, your bishop is kind of stuck here. You can't move it because you lose the queen, and I might move my bishop and add another attack here. And although this is playable, it's very complicated, and for a rapid game, Hikaru decides against it. So Hikaru plays E captures on d5, and now again Magnus doesn't want to face this d4 idea to close off his dark square bishop, so he plays bishop to e5. And the problem now is that Magnus has only 3 minutes left on the clock, whereas Hikaru has some 6 minutes. So here we have rook c to e8 going after Carlsen's bishop, we have bishop to f4, and now h6. So what do you play here? Queen to g4. Hikaru might have some g5 ideas later on, but it's hard to say if it's worth it opening up the king like that. So Magnus goes queen to g4. Now, a lot of pressure here on the black king. Bishop captures on h6 is always an option. So here, rook to e6, defending that pawn, also preparing to double up maybe rooks on the e file, maybe triple on the f file, all depending on what white plays. And here, Magnus goes h4. He wants to grab more space with h5, but Hikaru doesn't allow that. He plays h5 and pushes back Carlsen's queen. Queen back to d1, and now comes rook to f6. And now we have this beautiful rook, queen, rook battery. And we might have some threats here. Rook captures on f4 is definitely an idea. And here, Carlsen goes king to g2. He says, okay, for the moment, rook captures on f4 isn't all that great, but you can play it if you want. One idea is to go knight to d4. It's a really strong move, and what can you play here? If the knight comes to e6, then you have the bishop attacked 4 times, and if bishop to e5, putting some pressure here, then you can just play rook f3, and the black's position is just excellent. Another thing, you could actually capture on f4, but it's not as forcing, because after g captures and let's say queen captures, after queen captures on h5, it's actually black who has problems here, because there are a lot of holes here. Bishop to h7 will be deadly. So instead, Hikaru plays g6, but now Carlsen gets some moves in. He goes bishop to h6, attacks the rook here, rook to e8, and now bishop to g5, pushing the rook from f6, rook f to e6, now doubling up on the e file, and now Magnus plays bishop back to b1. He goes after, bishop back to c2. He goes after the d5 pawn with bishop to c2, but it's a very tricky move. Bishop to b1 is better. Because with the bishop to c2, you could go for something like knight to d4, and then it's a problem. You're no longer attacking this, and you're threatening to pick up white's light square bishop, which is an excellent attacker. However, here, Magnus actually set a deadly trap, the deadliest of traps. And he's asking Hikaru, are you going to go for it? Are you going to go for rook to e1? Because the rook cannot capture. If the rook captures, then the f pawn is weak, and I'm just going to capture with the queen. And here Hikaru thought about it for a minute, and then he decided, yeah, this is too simple. Let's just play rook to e1. And now it seems like Carlsen is done for, but that couldn't be further from the truth. So feel free to pause the video here and win this game for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the only move that wins the game for Magnus. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, this is what Magnus set up, and it's bishop captures on g6. And when Hikaru saw this, he started shaking his head, as he usually does, and of course he resigned the game on move 33, as there is nothing more to be done here. The problem is, whatever you do, you're just completely lost. So here, what you can do is you could maybe capture the bishop, but if you capture the bishop, then you capture the rook on e1, and after captures, you're simply up material. You're up a pawn, and you're up the exchange. So there's really no point in playing this. White, it's just too easy for white to play this. So this obviously will not work if you go for the bishop. On the other hand, if you go for the queen right away, it also doesn't work, because bishop captures queen comes with check, and after king captures, rook captures on d1. Again, the same materials on the board. White is completely winning. And one last thing you can do after this bishop captures on g6 idea is you could capture on f2 with check. but now rook a captures on f2. So just rook captures on f2, and after rook captures on d1, you can capture this rook, and now you're simply up a whole rook. So whatever you play, it doesn't work. And of course, Hikaru saw this after bishop to g6. He resigned, and an excellent victory for Magnus Carlsen in the final round of day 2. And this is his only win today. Yesterday, he got 4 wins. Today he got 4 draws and this 1 win against Hikaru in the final round, which goes a long way, I mean, it is Hikaru, and he couldn't get a win in on the second day. So we're gonna discuss the standings a little bit tomorrow, as I'm going to show some more games from today. But that's it for today. So really awesome stuff. It seems Sauron rules supreme still. So hope you guys enjoyed that. I would like to thank Ilan Shumlin, Minke Kim, Jason Visco, Steve Green, and Ben White for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful tournament, checking up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And once again, thank you for 1 million subscribers. See you soon.